Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. They gave us trash, we built a warship of nightmares. Engines thrumming like a heartbeat, the weapon systems tingling like fingers ready to strike, the sensors stretching out like curious eyes. In the control room, Emma watched the monitors with growing concern. His neural activity is off the charts, she told Lisa. We should shut it down. Inside the ship, Jack opened his eyes, both his human eyes and the ship sensors. He could see the cave around him but also beyond it, through layers of rock, feeling the mountains weight above him. Jack, can you hear me? Emma's voice came through the comms. Your readings are dangerously high. We're shutting down in 30 seconds. No, Jack replied, his voice oddly calm. I need to test the full capacity. Before Emma could respond, Jack activated the engine systems. The ship hummed to life, its makeshift supports groaning under the sudden power surge. Jack, stop! Emma shouted. The supports aren't designed for active engines. But Jack wasn't listening. He pushed deeper into the connection, feeling the ship respond to his thoughts. The nightmare trembled, eager to break free from its restraints. In a moment of clarity, Jack realized what he was doing and pulled back. The engines powered down, and the ship settled back into its supports. I'm sorry, he gasped, his mind struggling to separate from the ship. When the neural interface finally disconnected, Jack collapsed in the chair. Blood trickled from his nose, and his eyes were bloodshot. Emma helped him to the medical area, where he lay shivering despite the warm blankets around him. What happened in there? She asked once his vitals had stabilized. Jack stared at the ceiling. It was more than I expected. The ship, it's not just machinery, Emma. There's something else there. What do you mean? It's like it has feelings, desires. Jack turned to look at her. It wants to hunt. Emma frowned. That's the interface affecting your brain. We need to adjust the settings. Jack shook his head. No, it's not a malfunction. It's what makes the nightmare special. Later that night, the core team met to discuss what had happened. We should delay the launch, Emma argued. Jack's reaction to the interface is concerning. We don't have time, Marcus countered. Our sources say the Dominion is planning a new wave of security protocols. If we don't move soon, we'll lose our window. Tom looked troubled. Did anyone else notice the ship's hull after Jack's test? The metal changed color where his hands touched the controls. It's darker, almost like. Like what? Lisa asked. Like it absorbed something from him, Tom finished. The team fell silent, considering the implications. 3 days later, despite Emma's concerns, they prepared for the nightmare's first real flight. The massive hidden doors in the mountainside opened to reveal a cloudy night sky. Jack sat in the pilot's chair, the neural interface humming as it connected to his mind. This time, he was ready for the rush of sensation. Neural connection stable, Emma reported from the control room. All systems online. Jack, how do you feel? Jack smiled. We feel ready. Emma caught the strange wording but had no time to question it as the nightmare's engines fired up. The ship rose from its cradle, hovering in the cave for a moment before shooting out into the night. As the nightmare soared into the clouds, Jack felt a sense of freedom he hadn't known since before the invasion. The ship responded to his thoughts faster than he could form them, almost anticipating his desires. High above Earth, hidden from Dominion sensors, the nightmare performed maneuvers that should have been impossible. It twisted and turned with a grace that defied its patchwork construction, and deep in Jack's mind, a voice that wasn't entirely his own whispered, "Soon we hunt." The alarm blared through the forge at 3:42 a.m., jolting everyone from sleep. Marcus burst into the main control room, his face pale. Dominion ships, he announced to the gathering team. A cruiser and 2 scout vessels just entered Earth orbit. They're heading for the Atlantic processing station. Emma pushed her way to the front. Why? That station has been operational for months without inspection. They detected energy fluctuations during our test flight, Lisa explained, studying the data on her tablet. They're sending an inspection team to investigate. Jack stood silently by the wall, his eyes distant. Since the test flight 3 days ago, he had been different, quieter, more focused, as if listening to a voice no one else could hear. How long until they reach the station? He asked. 2 hours, Marcus replied. And they'll find evidence of our thefts, the missing components, the altered records, everything. The room erupted in panicked discussion. They had planned for their first strike carefully, targeting a small Dominion outpost near Neptune. They weren't ready for a direct confrontation above Earth. We need to evacuate, someone said. Scatter and regroup later. No, Jack's voice cut through the noise. We fight. Emma stared at him. The nightmare hasn't been fully tested. The weapon systems will work, Jack finished. He looked around the room, his eyes strangely bright. This is what we built it for. We either use it now or lose everything. No one argued. Deep down, they all knew he was right. 40 minutes later, Jack sat in the pilot's chair as the final preparations were made. Emma attached the neural interface connectors with practiced hands. 20 minutes, she reminded him. That's the safe limit for neural connection. Jack nodded, but they both knew the coming battle would take longer. Be careful, Emma added quietly. The ship responds to your emotions. If you lose control. I won't, Jack promised, though something in his voice made Emma step back. As the neural interface activated, Jack closed his eyes. The familiar rush of connection washed over him, but this time he didn't fight it. He let himself sink deeper into the bond with the ship until the line between man and machine blurred. We are ready, thought Jack, or perhaps it was the ship thinking through Jack. The mountain doors opened, and the nightmare rose silently into the night sky. Its hull, designed to absorb rather than reflect, was invisible to both human eyes and Dominion sensors. High above Earth, the Dominion cruiser approached the orbital station. Twice the size of the largest human spacecraft ever built, it bristled with weapons and scanning equipment. The 2 scout ships flanked it, their sleek forms cutting through the blackness of space. Inside the nightmare, Jack watched through the ship sensors. He could see the energy signatures of the Dominion vessels, feel their movements as if they were creatures swimming in water. Approaching target, he reported, his voice oddly calm. Weapons hot. In the control room back at the forge, Emma and the others gathered around the communications array. They had no video feed, the nightmare systems were incompatible with their equipment, but they could hear Jack's voice. Be careful, Emma whispered, though Jack couldn't hear her. Remember who you are. The Dominion cruiser had just docked with the orbital station when its sensors detected something unusual, a brief energy spike where nothing should be. Before the alien crew could react, the nightmare appeared as if from nowhere, its weapons already firing. The first blast struck the cruiser's engine section, cutting through shields that had been designed to stop conventional attacks. This was no conventional weapon. It was a hybrid of technologies never meant to work together, powered by a human mind that understood rage in ways the Dominion never could. The scout ships broke formation, turning to face the threat. They fired energy beams that should have vaporized the smaller vessel, but the nightmare moved with impossible speed, twisting between the attacks as if it could predict them. Inside, Jack laughed. He could feel the Dominion ships, sense their confusion, their fear. The neural interface showed him not just their positions but their weaknesses, each Dominion vessel becoming a puzzle of vulnerable points connecting in his mind like a deadly constellation. The nightmare fired again, its weapons changing frequency to match the scout ship's shields. One vessel exploded in a silent flash of light. The other attempted to flee, but the nightmare pursued, moving like a predator after wounded prey. "Jack, report status," Emma's voice came through the comms, tense with worry. Jack didn't answer immediately. He was too focused on the hunt, the ship's consciousness merging with his own until they moved as one being. The second scout ship died under his weapons, breaking apart into spinning debris. Only the cruiser remained, its massive bulk trying to disengage from the station. Jack felt a surge of cold rage. These were the creatures who had conquered Earth, who had killed Emma's family, who had reduced humanity to servants. The nightmare responded to his emotions, its weapons charging to full power. "Jack!" Emma's voice cut through his thoughts. "Your neural readings are dangerously high. You need to disconnect." But Jack wouldn't stop. The nightmare surged forward, firing all weapons simultaneously. The cruiser's shields failed under the assault, and huge sections of its hull tore away into space. Jack guided the nightmare in close, feeling a savage joy as the ship tore into the cruiser like claws ripping flesh. Warning signals flashed across the neural interface, but he ignored them, pushing deeper into the connection. The Dominion ship broke apart, its reactor core destabilizing. Jack watched through the nightmare's sensors as alien crew members were sucked into space, their bodies freezing instantly in the vacuum. "I see you," he whispered to the dying aliens. "I see all of you now." As the cruiser's remains drifted away from the station, Jack finally pulled back from the deep connection. Blood ran from his nose and ears, but he was smiling. "Target eliminated," he reported, his voice hoarse. "The station is safe." Back at the forge, the control room erupted in cheers. Humanity had won its first victory against the Dominion. But Emma wasn't celebrating. She stared at the neural readings from Jack's interface, her face grim. "Something's wrong," she told Lisa quietly. "These patterns, they're not entirely human anymore." When the nightmare returned to base 3 hours later, the team rushed to meet their hero. But when Jack emerged from the ship, they fell silent. His eyes had changed, they were darker, with strange flecks of silver that seemed to move when he blinked. More disturbing was the ship itself. The hull, once a patchwork of different metals, had somehow changed. The sections had merged together more completely, and strange patterns had formed on the surface, patterns that looked disturbingly like neural pathways in a human brain. As Jack walked past his cheering teammates, only Emma noticed how his movements had changed, becoming more fluid, more predatory. And only Emma saw how, when Jack thought no one was looking, he reached back to touch the nightmare's hull with an expression that looked almost like longing. In the 3 weeks since the destruction of the Dominion cruiser, everything had changed. The one secret forge had become a buzzing center of activity. Word had spread through hidden human networks about the ship that had taken down a Dominion cruiser. Volunteers poured in, engineers, pilots, soldiers, all eager to join the fight. But no one was allowed near the nightmare itself. It sat in a separate chamber, guarded not by humans but by automated systems Jack had designed. No one questioned this arrangement. No one except Emma. She stood in her lab, studying the latest scans of Jack's brain. The patterns were unlike anything she had seen before, neural pathways rewiring themselves, new connections forming where none should exist. "How bad is it?" Lisa asked, joining her at the display. Emma sighed. "I don't know. His brain activity is off the charts, but he's functioning better than ever. His reaction time, memory, problem solving, all enhanced." "Then maybe it's not a problem," Lisa suggested. "Maybe it's evolution." "It's not evolution when it happens overnight," Emma replied sharply. "And it's not just Jack. The ship is changing too." Before Lisa could respond, alarms blared throughout the base. They rushed to the main control room, where Marcus was directing operations. "Dominion fleet incoming," he announced. 12 ships, including a dreadnought. They're heading straight for us. How did they find us?" Tom demanded. They didn't, Marcus replied. They're conducting a sweep of the entire region, but they'll detect us soon enough. All eyes turned to Jack, who stood silently in the corner. In the weeks since the battle, he had spoken less and less, spending most of his time with the nightmare. Jack, Emma stepped toward him. We need to evacuate. Jack shook his head, his silver-flecked eyes reflecting the red emergency lights. No. They're hunting us now. If we run, they'll never stop. We can't fight a dreadnought, Tom argued. That thing carries enough firepower to glass half a continent. A cold smile crossed Jack's face. The nightmare can fight it. We're stronger now. Emma noticed how he said we instead of it when referring to the ship. She tried one more time. Jack, your neural readings are dangerously unstable. Another deep connection could permanently damage your brain. Or complete the process, Jack replied cryptically. Before anyone could stop him, he turned and walked toward the nightmare's chamber. The doors opened at his approach, then sealed behind him. In the control room, screens lit up as the nightmare's systems came online. He's launching, Marcus reported, his voice tight with tension. Emma rushed to the neural monitoring station. Jack, please, at least let us monitor your vitals during the fight. There was a long pause before Jack's voice came through the speakers. It sounded different, deeper, with a strange harmonic quality. Very well, Emma. For you. The mountain doors opened, and the nightmare rose into the night sky. Emma gasped when she saw it on the external cameras. The ship had changed dramatically. Its hull was now a seamless black surface that seemed to bend light around it. The weapon systems had integrated more completely into the structure, like natural extensions rather than added components. My God, Tom whispered. What is it becoming? High above Earth, the Dominion fleet moved in a standard search pattern. The dreadnought, a massive vessel the size of a small city, formed the center of their formation. Smaller ships circled it, their sensors scanning the planet below. Inside the nightmare, Jack connected to the neural interface. This time there was no resistance, no sense of separation between himself and the ship. They flowed together like water mixing with water. The nightmare approached the fleet from below, visible only as a slight distortion against the stars. Its new hull didn't just absorb energy, it bent it, creating a camouflage effect that made the ship nearly invisible. In the lead scout ship, a Dominion sensor operator noticed something unusual, a momentary shadow that shouldn't exist. Before he could report it, the nightmare struck. Unlike the previous battle, there was no hesitation, no learning curve. The nightmare tore through the first scout ship before its crew could even raise shields. The second and third followed in rapid succession, their debris creating a cloud that confused the remaining ship sensors. In the Forge's control room, Emma and the team watched in stunned silence. The neural readings from Jack showed activity in parts of the brain that should have been impossible. He's not fighting like a human, Marcus observed. Those maneuvers, that precision, it's like watching a machine. Or something else entirely, Emma whispered. The Dominion fleet broke formation, trying to surround the attacker they could barely detect. The dreadnought launched fighters, filling space with small, agile craft. The nightmare moved among them like a shark through schools of fish, destroying fighters with short, precise energy bursts. Each kill made the ship stronger, as if it were absorbing energy from its victims. Finally, only the dreadnought remained. It fired its main cannon, a beam of concentrated energy that could split a planet's crust. The nightmare didn't dodge, it met the beam head-on. For a moment, Emma thought the ship had been destroyed. Then the sensors showed something impossible, the nightmare had absorbed the energy blast and was using it to power its own weapons. The dreadnought never had a chance. The nightmare tore it apart piece by piece, methodically destroying weapons, engines, and finally life support. As the massive ship died, Jack broadcast a message on all Dominion frequencies. You thought us prey. You gave us your scraps and expected gratitude. Now you face what we built from your trash. We are the nightmare you created. The message repeated in every Dominion language, ensuring they all understood. Back at the forge, the control room was silent as the nightmare returned. Everyone had seen what it could do, what Jack could do. The line between hero and monster had never seemed so thin. When the ship landed, Emma was the first to approach. The chamber doors opened, and Jack emerged. He was changed. His skin was pale, with dark veins visible beneath. His eyes were now completely silver, reflecting light like mirrors. When he moved, it was with an inhuman grace. Jack. Emma's voice shook slightly. Are you still in there? Jack tilted his head, studying her as if.